Hi everyone, my name is Jason Paul Peterson from PetersonPianoAcademy.com. I'm a professional pianist, and in today's video I'm going to show you some of the ways that you can practice scales at the piano. Now, scales are such a crucial part of every pianist's technique, and you need to have, first of all, the fingerings for all those scales down. So if you haven't learned those yet, I'd encourage you to check out PetersonPianoAcademy.com, where you'll find all 24 major and minor scales presented very clearly, where you can see all the fingerings and illuminated keys and much more. In this video, we're going to look beyond that and check out some of the variety that you can bring into your scale practice. So let's look at some of the things that you can do once you've got those scales down. Now, when you're practicing scales, one of the first things that everybody learns is playing in parallel motion and playing in contrary motion. So parallel motion being something like this, and contrary motion being something like this. Now, the first thing that you can try that you might not know about is what's often called the Russian technique of playing scales. That means I'm playing 2 octaves up, then I'm playing apart and back together, 2 more octaves up, back down, apart and together, and then back down. It sounds complicated, but I'll show you right here it's not as bad as it sounds. The Russian way of playing scales, I'll play it slowly. I begin by playing 2 octaves up. Once I get to this point, I go in opposite directions. Now I come back together. I go up again. Back down. And then contrary directions once more. And then back down. So all together that sounds like this. Now that's just the beginning. Don't forget, when you're practicing scales, switch up the dynamics. Practice them fortissimo, practice the scales piano, pianissimo, and practice as well making crescendos and diminuendos. So as you go up, a crescendo, and as you go back down, getting gradually softer, diminuendo, something like this. Now, another thing that you can try with the scales is working on the separation between the 2 hands. So rather than playing both hands the same dynamic all the time, we do what we often find in actual piano music, which is balancing those 2 hands, oftentimes, for example, with the right hand in the foreground and the left hand in the background, or vice versa. So you might try, first of all, playing the right hand loud and the left hand soft, something like this. And then reverse it, the left hand loud and the right hand soft. Now, we can also work with contrasting articulations. So most people practice the scales only legato all the time. But another thing that you can try is practicing those same scales staccato. It's a great exercise for really getting the fingers to work. And listen when you do this to make sure that every note is absolutely the same articulation. So every note is just as short, every note is detached from the next one. That would sound something like this. You can practice 2 octaves, you can practice 3, you can practice 4, anything you want. And just like we did with the dynamics, try switching it around. So you play one hand legato and the other hand staccato, like this. And then the reverse of that. Now, another thing that I really love to do is to switch where I'm putting the accent in the scale. So you can accent, for example, every 2nd note of the scale, you can accent every 3rd note, or you can accent every 4th note. Now, when you accent every 2nd note, it works well to play 2 octaves. When you accent every 3rd note, it works well to play 3 octaves. And when you accent every 4th note of the scale, it works really well to play 4 octaves of the scale, so that you end up on an accented note at the top of the scale. Something like this. Let's start with accenting every 2nd note. Every 3rd note. and every fourth note. Now, the great way about practicing like this is that it forces fingers that you might otherwise sort of gloss over to be really accented and to really play those notes firmly and decisively. And so I find a lot of times if you're having trouble getting the scales even, this is a great thing to do. Try accenting every second, third, or fourth note. Do that a while and go back to playing the scales normally, and oftentimes you'll notice a great increase in evenness. Now, another tip for increasing the amount of evenness when playing scales is to actually play different rhythms. A lot of people find this very tricky at first, but it can help you also to really get the fingerings very, very solid on these scales. So playing different rhythms would be something like this. Instead of playing all the notes the same speed, I might play long, short, long, short, long, short, long, like this. Or I might do the reverse. Another variation would be long, short, short, long, short, short, like this. Or long, short, 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 long, like this. And those different rhythms also, they force you to pause at a different point in the scale and can really, really help your evenness at the piano, can really improve your facility and coordination with the fingerings as well. So I really encourage you to give those a try. And as always with piano playing, if you find it difficult, if you find that it's just not working, do it slower. Long, short, short, long, until you get that fingering really down, until you feel really comfortable with it. And you'll notice with all these tricks that when you go back to playing the scale the normal way, you'll often find that it seems so much easier after you've tried all these different variations. So those are the main things that I like to do with playing scales, and maybe you have some tips and tricks as well. So if you think of anything else that I haven't covered here, be sure to leave it in the comments so that we can all learn from each other. Happy practicing, and I'll see you again soon.